Hey everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of Inside the Pages here on itrwrestling.com or wherever you get your podcasts. It's that time of the month again where we delve in to the most subtle plug of all time. That's a full podcast to promote an issue of our magazine. My name is Kenny McIntosh, and I'm joined as always by our editor-in-chief, Mr. Dante Richardson. Dante, is it sweating like balls where you are?
Dude, I am so warm. I'm honestly considering leaving the country and moving to Iceland.
How did he, my perfect, well, not perfect, but if it has to be hot, 19 to 20 degrees is my top. A bit of a breeze, bit of sun. This 26 degrees, it can get fucked. These people that go to Cyprus and for 40 degrees,
yeah, but they're more prepared for it than we are. We're not prepared for any weather, are we? Really over here?
I don't want to be prepared for 40 degrees.
Just aircon, man. Like honestly, people need to buy more magazines so I can install aircon in my house.
Sure, we'll work towards that. But speaking of the magazine, we've got one of our new hot contributors joining us here on the podcast today, and I'm going to get the name right. It is not James McMahon; it's James McMahon. It's very difficult for me to say McMahon in a Scottish accent. It's impossible. But McMahon is how you say it. James, how are you?
Yeah, no, I'm good. I feel it's a real blessing and a curse being someone who writes about wrestling and having the surname that I do. You can't really ignore it, can you? But it's. I was just saying before we got rolling that when I was a kid, that I used to tell my mates at school that my uncle Vince, he ran the wrestling over in the States. And I don't think I was ever found out, to be honest. So sorry to everyone I was at school with. For
I say until now, because they clearly are listening.
Yeah, I'm breaking kayfabe by being honest about it now after all these years.
This is very random and nothing to do with actually what we're going to talk about. But I remember a couple of years ago, I don't know if you've seen it, a clip surfaced on YouTube of Newsnight speaking to Vince McMahon in 1985. And it was it's like before they've got Titan Towers. So they're just like, we're speaking to impresario Vince McMahon about his wrestling empire. And it's just him sitting in this dinky wee office talking about wrestling. It's very random, but worth checking out.
Yeah.
James, when we have kind of people who write for the magazine on the podcast and we've not spoken to them before, it's always good to kind of ask, how did you get into wrestling as a fan? What was it that brought you in? And then what ultimately led you to getting to write about stuff as well?
I mean, I always think with me and wrestling, it was like, I was born 1980, so, child of the 80s. So very aware of wrestling from its WWF boom in the 80s. I never had Sky, though. I never had BSB. So I think in a way that almost like formulated the obsession because it wasn't something I could ever tire of. I had to go to a friend's to watch it or get them to take pay-per-views. And I think those things like really embolden your fandom when you've got to work for it a little bit. I think like a lot of us, like I've dipped in and out over the years. I wasn't really plugged in for the mid-90s. And then when the Monday Night Wars happen, I'm at university and I'm all in at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of early 20s kind of fall away a little bit. But I guess I start becoming quite smarky at that point,
happens to the best of us.
Yeah, I'm much more at that point, kind of getting interested in like tape trading and indie promotions and things. And then kind of like fell away again and kind of came back in again, and that seems to happen all the time. But I have to say, it's been a real buzz doing some stuff for the mag the last couple of issues. I would have said until quite recently that I was a music journalist. I've worked for a lot of music magazines, but I write and do podcasts and do creative stuff in all sorts of fields these days. And it's just really great to be able to talk about something which matters an awful lot to me, which is wrestling. And I guess one of the reasons why it is such a buzz is that I was obsessed with Power Slam Like, I genuinely think that Power Slam was like the closest that I came to having just like pure, almost like kind of once a month, just like a pure hit of like pleasure. You know, like just like the whole world like was shut out, and it was just me and Power Slam. And it's kind of a bit of a weird thing to say about a DIY wrestling mag, but it really was just once a month. It was a magazine that I would go to the newsagents and be frustrated if it wasn't in yet. And I actually think that Finn's writing is, if I'm thinking about the writers that really help shape my voice, I really think that Finn is one of those writers. Just, I've often been kind of frustrated in a sense that I would really like to see more of his writing about things that aren't wrestling, because I just think that he's got an incredible way with tone. So it's really nice. It's really nice to be part of the Inside the Ropes family.
I mean, it's interesting you say that about, you know, Power Slam, because Dan and I have talked about this ad nauseum, but like buying Power Slam, for people who bought it every month, it did become an experience, I think, for people. You know, like when you know, like because it came out on a Thursday, but sometimes they wouldn't have it on a Thursday, and then you'd be really annoyed because you have to come back in the Friday to get it. And then you obviously, you know, you can't just buy it and go out and just, you know, you're buying it because you can go home and read part of it straight away, and then you read back through parts. So I think everybody's kind of got their own thing with Power Slam, but it seems to be an experience that people had with it.
Yeah, I mean, and you know what? Like, I mean, I get the reason why, but like when it wrapped up, which was very, to me at least, it was very abrupt. Like when it wrapped up, I almost felt betrayed in a sense. It was a little bit like, whoa, where's this gone? Like it really felt like something that gave me so much pleasure had just been taken from me. I have to say though, as well, it's weird when I think about how much wrestling has inspired like things that I do, like creative output. Like I was obsessed with WWE magazine. I think it was one of the greatest magazines ever. Like I think that its irreverence and tone was brilliant. Like it was obviously made by people who loved the product but weren't slaves to all of the things that wind us up about the product. I thought it was amazing, and every music magazine I've ever worked on, you know, maybe as a positive or maybe as a detriment, I carried old issues of WWE magazine into the windowless rooms where redesigns get planned, and said, "Oh, I really want to do something like this." And I'm in a band called Jobbers as well, so you know, wrestling kind of permeates a lot of what I do.
I do actually want to, because when Dan, you can sort of fill us in on James coming on board, but I remember when your the first piece, Paranormal Activities, came in, and I read it and I was like, oh my god, this is great. Like, not that I didn't think it was going to be good, but you don't quite expect that that it's going to come in, it's going to be. There was so much interest, and I'm not here to crawl up your arse, but like there was so much interesting stuff in it, and there was bits that you brought into it. I was like the Kevin Sullivan stuff, and it was fascinating. So props to starting out with a bang.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, no, it was a real labour of love. That I'm into the spooky stuff, and I do a bunch of podcasts, but I helm like I don't know what you would call it really, sort of like a creative collective called Spook, and one of the podcasts that we do is called the Spook Podcast, and that is about the weird and the strange, so UFOs and Bigfoot and horror movies and a bit of true crime, like loads of things I'm really interested in. And I actually did do a very short episode on what I described as paranormal wrestling, almost this sort of I almost kind of invented this subgenre really. And I interviewed Dan St. Germain, who does the Wrestle Roast podcast for it, and I really like Dan. Like I've known him for quite a long time, but he didn't. He kind of got on the podcast and he didn't particularly want to talk about spooky wrestling, which was problematic because he was on the podcast to talk about spooky wrestling. So when I spoke to Dante, it seemed the obvious thing to explore it further.
So I guess, Dan, just tell us how James came on board, how you came to see of his magnificent musings.
Well, see, I was familiar with James anyway from Kerrang, because I am a heavy metal fan, and used to get Kerrang very, very regularly for a long, long time. So I did already know of him. I didn't know he liked wrestling, and it was Tom Fordy who actually suggested. He's like, oh, I know this guy. He's a really great writer. If you like my work, you'll love his work. I was like, well, I do like your work, so that's a promising start. And yeah, we chatted via email, and James suggested that paranormal activities article, or whatever we called it at the time. I think that was I may have changed the name of that because I enjoyed the title, but yeah, and it was fantastic, as you say. So like, right, better get you in every issue from now on. So.
Basically, I came into the territory. I was trying to think of some sort of wrestling metaphor there, but
there is one. Yeah, there is one.
No, it could be. The news came out today that CM Punk might be going to AEW. So you're going to come in and take spots away from people who are on Dynamite right now, and they're going to be relegated to dark because of you. It's capitalism.
I'm all right with that.
Yeah, fuck them. So anyway, issue 11, Dan, with Cody Rhodes on the cover.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, I guess let's talk about Cody first, because we had talked about we just done Heyman, but we wanted to do another big interview, to just kind of to do a big interview, and Cody was quite high up on that list.
I mean, it was about time we did an AEW interview, to be honest.
We did Jericho in issue 3.
We did, but obviously it's a while ago, yeah. So it was like, well, we'd like to do something from AEW. Let's see what we can get. Cody obviously makes the most sense, and he was our sort of top pick. And then to give us Cody, which was fantastic. And this was one of those where we knew in advance it was going to be long, so I didn't map out 4 pages for it. I had 6 prepared for you, Kenny.
Yeah, we didn't have the usual, oh God, it's going to be 6, isn't it? Fuck.
Yeah, well, issue 12 is a different story. But like, yes, I mean, with this one, it was fine. And I think I said to you at the time, I was like, I think this is actually probably the best interview you've ever done for the mag.
Well, it's funny because when I was doing it, like, I remember kind of prepping for it, going, because I always feel a pressure when you do interviews, because especially the Heyman interview that I'd just done, like, I was very aware that he had done it in character, and I knew that wasn't going to be the Heyman interview that some people would want, but I wasn't going to be able to do. He wasn't going to,
yeah, it's all you were going to get.
So, and I thought I did well with what I had, but with Cody, I was like, I need to nail this. Like, if I don't get all the stuff, I need to ask him about the shite Dark Order thing at the end of 2019. I need to ask him about the sparkler ending of Revolution. Like, I need to get that stuff in there, and he was just.
But he answered everything, didn't he?
Yeah, he didn't. There
was no political answers or no shying away from anything. And that's why I like Cody, because he does just take it on the chin and go, look, yeah, I hold my hands up. This wasn't good enough. This was my fault, whatever it might be.
Yeah, and I remember messaging you because I'm always the first to be critical of what I do, of the interviews I do or whatever. I remember going, I fucking nailed that. Like, I knew. The rare time that you just know, you're like, this is great. And AEW gave us a nice photo of him to use with that absolutely valid neck tattoo that he has.
Indeed. I don't mind his neck tattoo, actually.
It's a choice.
It is a choice.
He was obviously the cover star when we had him.
Oh yeah,
in the interview.
Yeah. I mean, he had to be, didn't he? And it's a hell of a shot. And obviously, in terms of how we've done the cover, because we always like to get the little Easter eggs in. It's a combination of things. It's obviously based on his color scheme, his American Nightmare color scheme, but the background we've based on. There was an old WWF magazine issue. I'm sure James remembers it, with Hogan on the front. I think he was holding a flag. American flag.
Summer 91, wasn't it?
Yeah, it'd have been Gulf War sort of time, slaughter feud, I would imagine. And it had the exact same sort of blue, cloudy photo background as this one. So we're like, let's use that because, American Hero Hogan at the time. American Nightmare Cody, July 4th. It is, around the time this comes out. So fantastic.
I am, because I remember I'd sent Cody a message saying, "Oh, by the way, the cover's inspired by the Hogan WWF cover," and he was like, "I know, I know what it is." But it's a stacked issue, because even with Hell in a Cell ended up just being a page because
nothing happened.
Nothing happened. It was the last Thunderdome pay-per-view. But let's talk about your article, Dan. Available for hire. All of the people that are as of writing, all of them were free market people. The only one that's changed, I guess, is Aleister Black now.
Oh, those articles are such a nightmare, because obviously you've got time between finishing them off and then people actually getting it in the hands in the stores. So there is always a chance that stuff will happen. And I figured with all of them, at least the 90-day clause protected me. What I didn't account for is WWE's incompetence in Aleister Black's contract. So that was good. But fortunately, my prediction was that he would end up in AEW and should be a top priority for them. And obviously he has. So
because I'd said this to you last month and I got it wrong because I was thinking about the wrong thing. But because you had done the article and you were like, "Oh yes, it's done, it's in the bank," and then you're like, "Oh no, I've not dealt with Brock or Brian."
Oh yeah, that was this one. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I did get to the end and go, "Fuck, Brock Lesnar, he's a pretty big star." So I did Brock, and I was like, "Oh my god, Daniel Bryan." And really, you could argue, well, CM Punk ain't there either, is he? It's like, well, he wasn't released, so fuck off. I think I'll be right.
I'm trying to remember what you said about bloody hell, why's my mind gone completely blank?
While you're thinking about it, there's a great bit where you're talking about Lana and you go through pros. Pros are like, if you can discount her effort or whatever. Cons, as a wrestler, she is abysmal.
That was definitely a Finn Martin inspired line. I'll tell you that. It was like, what else can you say about it? Like, that is a big negative. She's shit. So it's like,
I was trying to remember what you wrote about Vicky Cross.
Oh, Nikki Cross. That was in issue 10, and I said WWE doesn't really know what to do with her or where they're going with her, or really, and it's very hard to sort of ascertain what they think of her, because one minute she wins, but the next it's like she wins in 1 minute, but it's not actually winning because it's a draw. She just survives a minute. So she's changed significantly since, inevitably. Those articles do age very quick. So.
Yeah, no, it's a little bit like shooting fish in a barrel, isn't it?
I mean, they're kind of like, you would get that article in a Power Slam, or that's the kind of thing that you would.
Yeah, man, and that's kind of what it was. Loosely, very, very loosely, actually inspired by. There was an article in the Power Slam in 2001, about what might happen next for the WCW guys after WWF bought them, before anyone kind of knew what was happening. So it must have been sort of April, May 2001. And Finn was sort of going through, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, what are they likely to do? And I thought, you know what, there's a lot of free agents on the market in the same way as there was then. So now's probably quite a good time to do that, and kind of a bit of analysis about where these people might end up, and more reasoned analysis, not like random predictions. Oh, Brock Lesnar will go to AEW because he won't. It's more, right, this is the situation. This is the scenarios that sort of are for and against these different outcomes, and this is what's most likely to happen. So obviously you do set yourself up for Haley a big time there, because if you're wrong, you look like an arsehole. So.
It's interesting because all the magazines I've worked at, there's always, more and more as the years have passed, but there's these conversations about what should the magazine be. And I think they're important questions, because like the nature of print journalism has changed so much within the last year or the last 5 years or the last 10 years or whatever. But
really,
totally. But I also think that there's a bit of a danger sometimes. You get away from just your gut of what it should be. And I think that with content like that, you almost go, well, it's not an interview. It's not anything with like exclusive access. Like, this is something that you could find on Reddit or whatever, but you couldn't when it's written really well, and you couldn't where it's collated with real insight. And I think that, again, that was always it'd be really amazing sort of in 20 issues time where, Power Slam is a little bit, not a footnote, but, like it hangs over the magazine a little bit less.
Mhm.
But that was always the thing that was brilliant about Power Slam, was it was Finn's insight and knowledge and flair with the written word made this content, which the internet has made inverted commas free, like desirable. And I really thought that about that feature. So
thank you, man. I mean, Finn would say it sings, I think, you can make it sing on the page where you can't on the internet. And I remember when we started, the whole reason for this was like, we do miss Power Slam and other magazines, but Power Slam is a big factor, and we're not ashamed of the fact that it's very similar. It is very much the spiritual successor, and we have no qualms with that. Obviously, we want to stand on its own 2 feet at some point down the line, and people are, just take it for what it is. But that Power Slam influence will always be there for sure, especially when Finn's involved. But I don't think that's a negative thing. But in terms of our sort of ethos, it's always been, we love wrestling. Everyone who's involved loves wrestling. Wrestling is fun. The internet is very nasty about wrestling all the time. It's just negative. And we're like, we don't want to be that. Obviously, we will point out the negatives when necessary, but we're not just going to rip it apart. So that's kind of the difference.
Even as an example of that, it's like, so I personally, I know I hate the Alexa Bliss stuff. I know you love it, Dan, but like
I do.
But I'm not going to write a page about why I hate it or that it's rubbish. But like, you've got color commentary with Keith in this issue where he talks about, Alexa Bliss and kind of the history of other people doing stuff with puppets and whatever. So like, and
it's
I
not
feel
new, right?
Yeah, but that's much more what we should be doing, because unless you've got something really interesting to say, saying this is shite, it's not very interesting. So
also Kenny, she's fucking brilliant.
She is brilliant. Maybe ignore that segment on Raw this week, but she is brilliant.
I like her. I like parts of it. I think it's Lily that drove me over the edge.
Oh, I'm going to buy one of those, Lily. I might buy one right now, actually. I noticed they're in the store. Keep it in business.
I had exactly the same thought the other day. I think I was looking, because when I was saying about Nikki Cross before, like that was one of the. I'm a big Nikki Cross fan. Like I used to see her wrestle at Eve. I saw her wrestle in a disused swimming bath in Hackney, and it was around the time that I got sucked right back into wrestling again. So, when she won the belt the other day, it really felt like, well, I don't know, I felt quite moved by it actually, because it felt like she was in the bin like a month before.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was just like perusing the shop. I was just thinking, I wonder what shirts Nikki Cross has got. And then I saw the Lily dolls, and I was like, that is fucking genius.
I mean, the thing is, I say all this, I'll probably end up buying one because I like merch.
It's in my cart right now. For £27.
It's a license to print money. A license to print money.
Yeah. I mean, I will say on Nikki Cross, I think the second ICW show I ever went to was in the Classic Grand in Glasgow. And she came out with like a pantsuit on and like a Filofax from WH Smith, just screaming at everybody. And it's just like, if somebody had come up to you in that bar and said, see you in 9 years, she'll be winning Money in the Bank, you'd went, but it's great that that's now become what it is, that she's managed to do it.
She's worked hard for it though, and she's a good person. She deserves it.
See, the thing about, she bought pizzas for the extras from NXT when Shotzi put it out, saying that when the NXT people were the extras for Raw and SmackDown last year, she bought them all pizza.
Really? That doesn't surprise me.
They don't all do that.
That doesn't surprise me. They don't.
Anyway, let's quickly talk about Brian Solomon, his on the market piece about WWE potentially being sold and the pros and the cons. So this is a pretty fascinating article, just kind of looking at what could happen if they go ahead with it.
Yeah, I thought Brian was the right guy for it. I asked him, I said, have you been filling this WWE potentially for sale story? And he was like, have I ever? I was like, well, have I got a task for you? And he was really up for it. And I thought it was, again, kind of like what James was touching on earlier, it's a really sort of different piece than you'll get when you just, read something on Reddit or on Twitter or whatever. It's in depth. It's using that sort of insider knowledge that he has. It's using his experience and sources and whatever else to sort of do some proper journalism and get to the bottom of, what is the situation here? Why have things changed? What's the evidence to show that things have changed? And there's quite a lot. And if it's really true, what really will happen? Because I know people think, you could literally say anything. You could predict anything could happen if it wasn't Vince. But realistically, what's it going to be based on when other similar kind of things happen, like when Disney bought Star Wars or whatever example you want to use? So yeah, fantastic article. Lovely eBay style design. I was really pleased with that one. Kind of thing I love having in the mags. So.
But James, you were back again, this time with a very interesting article about mental illness and kind of how that's treated in wrestling and stuff. It's a very personal, I felt like it was a personal piece because obviously you talked about yourself in it. Talk about the idea of doing the article.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a weird one, really, like, because I've just been saying everything about Nikki Cross, but like actually, and like I'm a fan, like I say, and these people aren't their gimmicks. But I mean, I hated the Sanity Stable in NXT, and that comes really from a perspective of I've had OCD for the majority of my life. It's a very misunderstood condition. People think it's about washing your hands or an obsession with symmetry. It is that, but it's also something which can often be a lot more debilitating than that. I mean, I'll keep it light, but it is in many ways my life has been cursed by it. It's brought me immeasurable misery. I'm quite involved with the OCD community. It's been a big help for me. I go to support groups and I do a podcast about OCD called the OCD Chronicles. And I guess it's that thing of I've written quite a lot about the representation of OCD in TV and film and literature. I wrote a piece for The Guardian earlier this year that was riffing on an horrendous OCD storyline that was in EastEnders. And I guess that it's just, I always say to my wife, actually, me and my wife were talking about this the other day, she's very involved with the OCD community as well, just because she supports me. But I was saying that, like, once you've had an illness like that, like it shapes you, like it changes the way that you see the world, because you start thinking about things like obstacles that other people with mental illness have, or the failure of mental health services, how difficult it is to find treatment. The world, not that I was ever gullible enough to think that the world was all like sweetness and rainbows, but actually when you are within a broken mental health service and you are struggling to get the help you need, like, it does make you more empathetic. And I feel like with wrestling, it's hard to not apply it to that to a degree. And I was quite conscious writing that piece because I'm quite a left-leaning sort. I'm quite a left-leaning sort politically, and I do not hugely into the woke term. I think that term has been like sullied, like, to mean something beyond what it originally meant now. But I do think that it's important that we interrogate the culture that we consume, and we know that a lot of wrestling content has been very problematic over the years. Like, it's almost part of the law, like, not like why we like it, but it's just part of the law. Like, we love this stuff, but we tolerated this stuff. And I'm also very conscious that ultimately this is an interest about watching people pretend to fight about personal issues or things that they're not happy with each other about or whatever. So therefore, like, sanitizing it through the filter of through the filter of I don't want to say political correctness because I sound like a wanker if I say that, but like sanitizing it to the extent of just sawing off all the sharp edges is I don't want to do that, like, because I want wrestling to be like rowdy, right? But at the same time, as like an advocate for better representation, it's hard. I'm trying to think what actually sort of like pushed me over the edge. It might have been Dexter Lumis actually, because I'm a big horror movie fan as well. So it was like it kind of that character is kind of like in a weird place where it's kind of basically trying to play someone who's unhinged. There's like quite a lot of misusage of clinical mental health terms being used there. I always kind of find it quite difficult as a horror movie fan when it comes to things like the asylum trope. You know, I've been in mental health institutions. Like they aren't what's depicted in horror movies. But
I'm guessing it's not padded walls and straight jackets.
Exactly. I mean, you know, like me and Dante, when I first started doing some stuff for the mag, like, you know, me and Dante were talking about my favorite, you know, like kind of my favorite wrestlers, right? Or my favorite eras or whatever. Like, you know, I'm like a massive Mick Foley fan. Like, and I loved the Mankind character, loved it. But like viewed through my experiences in subsequent years, it's it's harder to like reconcile for me. So it was hard to write that piece, whereas you don't want to be too like joyless, and you don't want to be too just don't want to be a politically correct dickhead. Like you want to like understand why wrestling is glorious. Like watching people pretend to kick the shit out of each other is amazing, but at the same time, yeah, it does need to be dragged into where we're at now. And I think that at the risk of this turning into a sermon, the reason why that piece spilled over into the personal is that this stuff does have real world consequences. Like I got diagnosed with OCD when I'm 40. I'm 40 now. I got diagnosed with OCD when I was 28. I'd already had 8 years of like obsession and rumination and irrationality and not knowing what on earth was wrong with me. And I got diagnosed when I was 28 at like an incredible mental health institution in London. And I rejected it because when they said OCD to me, the problems I was having didn't feel like they fit in the box that were marked OCD. And I went off, and a lot of my life was a lot more difficult than it needed to be. And then came back to the diagnosis, and you know, things have been progressively better since. But I think that's the reason why you have to do this stuff properly. You know, you have to show how this stuff really is. And I think that there's a psychologist friend of mine called Dr. Sachin Shah who I interviewed in the piece, and he made a really good point that actually all you really wanting is better writing. Like you're just wanting more nuance. You're not wanting to take the carnality of it out. You're just wanting to not be so lazy and rely on tropes so much. And I think there's something about that with wrestling. You know, when we look at AEW, I mean, not that it hits the beats every week, but you know, if there's anything that we like about AEW, it's the fact that these stories bubble and simmer, and you know, there's a long-term nature to the booking of it. And I think that's what has to happen, rather than, you know, going to the battered box of gimmicks and going, well, this person was in an asylum, they're crazy, therefore they're dangerous, because that stuff does have real world consequences.
Yeah, I mean, I think that really adds to the piece when you talk about it. So
it's across the board, though, isn't it, with wrestling, that reliance on tropes and the easy gimmicks from the box. You know, you've got the evil foreigner that's been stamped out just about, I guess, now, but WWE's still capable. I mean, I guess that's what Jinder Mahal and his cronies are now. They're the evil foreigners. There's loads of gimmicks like that over the years. I mean, a lot of them, it has changed. You know, certainly with the women, it's changed. But I do think with with mental health, it hasn't really changed. There are still a lot of, inverted commas, crazy characters out there, which aren't particularly well rounded or well written, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, it's. I feel like within that piece, I was asking a lot of questions of my own belief system with wrestling that I think in many ways, wrestling is a very base art form, and it relies on very simple structures, which is there's some good people, there's some bad people, and they're going to have a scrap. And I don't want that to change, but at the same time, I feel like the world is way more complicated than that now. Like in a global 24/7 world, I think the world is more complicated than that. And like I don't really have the answers, but I certainly feel like it's something that we need to be trying to do more of. And I think that thing with tropes, I mean, certainly with WWE, well, I always think that they're one week of hitting the wall in a writer's room off, going right back to it. This thing, even I don't know, like I'm not totally sure how I feel about it, because I don't feel like I'm qualified to speak because it's not my lived experience. But like some of the Apollo Crews stuff really early on, I was like, I'm not sure totally how I feel about that. But again, that might just be my sensitivities. Over in AEW, there's a lot to like about AEW, but the Cody feud with the Brit boxer, I can't remember,
Anthony Ogogo.
Yeah, I mean, I was just like, where has this come from? Like, it's like,
they're trying to do the Heart Foundation, I think, and nobody dislikes the UK in the same way. So.
Well, I mean, plenty of people do dislike the UK.
Yeah, true, but
not America.
Not America. Yeah,
it's not the. It's been a long time since the American War of Independence. So yeah, it's and I think that's the thing as well, isn't it? Where it's, I guess, if you are smarky, if you're in the know, you come at this stuff with a more thoughtful nature. I'm not saying that that's like it doesn't have to be woolly, but you do come at it less from the perspective of Cena or whatever. You come at it with like some thought. So it was really great that you gave me some space to explore that in the mag.
Yeah. It's a great article. I would recommend everybody check it out. It's very thought provoking, which seems to be James's style. Thought provoking. We're going to be getting, which is great. But I also
the next thing I write, I'm just gonna put loads of dick jokes in.
I was going to say the next thing is going to be tits and dicks. So.
I was the whole time you were talking about your personal experience stuff. I was going, if I was actually a writer, which I'm not, there'd be a great article in LGBTQ representation in wrestling, because you'd have so much fun.
That's another horror show, isn't it?
It's another horror show.
It really is. I mean, gold dust. Johnny B. Bad. I mean, there's a big list. Yeah, everyone's a. What's the way of describing this without being offensive in the way that wrestling portrays it?
What are you trying to say?
It's always the flowery type gimmicks, isn't it?
Well, yeah. It's always the over the top flamboyant feminine character. That's the one. Yeah. But then it's like in you mentioned EastEnders earlier, James. It's like in soaps in the UK, the gay character always seems to be the one who has a love affair for 6 months and then has to leave the street for some reason. It seems to they always have to leave the street. They can never.
I mean, don't be watching EastEnders. There's better uses of your time,
mate. I love EastEnders. Like,
dude, come on.
Well, see, whenever I go down to my other half's mum's house, she watches like Coronation Street, EastEnders, and Emmerdale. So I'll sit and watch them because I'm just like, right, let's see what's happening. And you do get sucked in. It's shit, but you go, but did he punch her? Did that happen? Well, you didn't watch half it.
I'm not totally sure I'm having that it's shit, but it's capable of being shit.
Well, I mean, like as an example, one of my favorite things that I bring up about soaps that just is so like EastEnders. Sharon, the character in EastEnders, in the space of a 12-month period, the following things happened. She came back home. She found out her dad was actually not dead. She then found out she had a half brother. She was engaged to a fireman who then died in a fire in his house. she then
I mean, you're going way back here.
this 2002, yeah. So
Fucking
then,
hell.
but then, still within a year, then the dad is killed for real, and then she finds out that the brother is not her full brother, so they shag, and
Sure.
then she gets pregnant, and then he gets murdered in front of her on Christmas Day.
Yeah, but Kenny, right? We're wrestling fans. We
I was going to say that doesn't sound like anything. Really.
Listen, if WWE or AEW booked that amount of story for a character, I'd be well in. Sign me up. Bring in Sharon.
Russo, mate.
I mean, I will turn to my wife when watching EastEnders, and I will use wrestling terminology to explain what we've just seen in EastEnders. Phil Mitchell is the very definition of the cool heel. I will often say, "Oh, Billy Mitchell's turned face," and it's.
I'm not doing. Before you ask, we are not doing a wrestling and soaps. Are they really the same thing? Sort of article. I cannot do it.
We'll see how you
soaps
feel 20
are my
issues from
ultimate
now.
nightmare. That I hate them.
You don't need to watch them.
Well, the article. I mean, the thought piece that just wouldn't fuck off. And I actually read one the other day. I was like, "Are we still doing this?" Is how basically politics has become pro wrestling.
Oh yeah.
And that's, I mean, there is something in
there is something in that.
Yeah.
I studied politics at uni specifically because it reminded me a lot of wrestling. So,
well, listen,
there you go.
Let's finish off by talking about Ash Rose taking a look back at Silver Vision, which I'm sure is important to all of us, especially me and James, who didn't have access to Sky when we were younger.
Hey, neither did I.
All three of us then. Getting that mega mail catalog in was a highlight. So I mean, this 4-pager by Ash is great. I mean, you learn a lot of stuff. I don't want to give too much away, but I didn't really know the reason behind Tide Classics.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it, when you can learn something even now.
I can't describe to you as a collector how much I hate the cover of Tag Classics.
I know.
It reminds me of when Woolworths do 2 movies in one.
Yeah. Yeah. Or when Silvervision used to do the double packs of the videos, and there were different, 2 different videos that didn't follow on back to back, and they had that awful double case. I mean, what were they thinking with that? other than money, what were they thinking with that?
But in spite of that, great article by Ash here on Silvervision.
Yeah. So look, Silvervision is a big passion. I have all of them near enough, behind me as we speak, and proudly displayed in my office, and they do still get used. Yes, I do have a video player still, and yes, it just about still works. So, hey, that network's not going to be there forever, as people in America have found out. So hold on to your tapes, is all I'm saying. But yeah, it's great. I've been wanting to do a Silvervision piece for a while. It was always a great pleasure. I don't know if you have that recurring dream, either of you guys, where you walk into a store and there's VHSs from 89, 90, 91 that you've never seen before, WF ones, and you don't have enough money, can't find your wallet, whatever it is. Oh,
can I make a confession quick?
Yeah. Sure. Careful though.
I mean, you guys are the first people I've told this to.
Safe space.
Other than my wife, and when I told her, she just kind of shrugged. But I was actually the other day. I was actually looking for Zubas.
I have a pair of Zubas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was actually I'd really like to own some Zubas.
WWE shop. Yeah, I own NWO, Zubas.
So I was looking at Zubas, and then I almost bought an ICO Pro t-shirt.
Oh Lord, you should have. Amazing.
You gotta want it.
Yeah, you do. I do want it.
And I almost bought on Redbubble someone had taken the Silvervision logo and rammed it onto a t-shirt. So. I didn't. For the benefit of if my wife is bothered enough to listen to this, I didn't buy any of them, Pet.
Good save.
None of them will be turning up in the post. I'm on course for this month's mortgage, but.
Were you a big Silvervision fan growing up though? Were you the same as us? So going out wanting all the videos you could get so you could consume as much of this thing as possible?
I think it was later on. I think that I guess the thing I skipped over before is that I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I just feel like so much of my adult life has been trying to appease the kid that I was.
Oh yeah.
You know, whether that's
So this whole fucking magazine is.
I mean, it's my entire career. Like,
Yeah.
I was writing something about comic books the other day, and my dad had a thing about comic books. He had a thing that they were like, they were bad for you. Yeah, cheers, Dad. Fuck off.
We're bad for you.
Do you know what I mean? So like,
Wow.
and I think that's a bit of a thing with wrestling. Really, it's like I would have almost like the 11-year-old is owed it. You know.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, man. And like, I still find it a great pleasure in putting an old VHS in and it being in the exact same place it was when I last watched it. It's like, you're just picking up from 20 or 30 years ago. All right, fantastic. Let's carry on.
One of my goals one day, and it's not very close, but like I want to own all of those American Coliseum videos that they brought out. The best of WWS Volume 1 to 20.
Yeah, I have some of them. I do have some of them, and they are fantastic. I've seen them all.
Did you know
different? But...
Did you know this, James? This is a very geeky thing for us to admit. So you know how like when you would buy an old WWF video, like say you bought SummerSlam '89, it was like the code on the side would be WF072 or whatever, and like we have all of them. And I remember being a kid being like, why is WrestleMania 1004? Like where are 1, 2, and 3? And why is there not another one till 21? Like, where are all these? And it was only when I was like 18 or 16, sorry. And I found out that all these Coliseum videos had been released that we never got. I mean, that was mind blown.
Yeah.
That's almost like, it reminds me a bit of, I'm making a documentary at the moment for Radio 4 about Bullseye. And I've been going around the country interviewing people who've been on Bullseye. And there's an entire season of Bullseye that's missing. And I did briefly decide that maybe there was a 10-part podcast series in what happened to the missing season of Bullseye, and then thought, not every idea you have, James, is a good idea. But I feel like there's a Silver Vision lick there.
Is the missing series the one with the murderer in it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying not to think about that while I'm making a documentary about how brilliant Bullseye was.
Yeah, well, fair. Yeah.
It has been amazing, though. It has been amazing meeting people. I was in Newcastle under Lyme interviewing a guy and his wife who'd been on that show in, I think it was like 85. It was just amazing being in their house, you know, like surrounded by the bendy bully and the tankard and all this stuff.
As if they've still got him. Unbelievable.
Yeah, totally. Well, I should admit that I did go on eBay and buy a bendy bully the other day.
Dude, I mean, I always wanted one of those crystals from the Crystal Maze, you know, because they always you wanted one of those, didn't you? You know, like you felt like you achieved something at the end of that show. Never mind all these Who Wants to Be a Millionaire cash prize. You wanted a little cheap shit glass crystal.
Wow,
or I did.
Listen, I'm
getting you for Christmas.
We could devolve this chat into our nostalgia for probably another 3 hours, ladies and gentlemen. We're gonna curb it there.
Probably should.
And basically convince you to buy issue 11 of Inside the Ropes magazine at InsideTheRopesMagazine.com. That's where you can get it. If you subscribe rather than buy a single issue, most of the time you will receive it a little bit early. We can't promise that, obviously, but I received my one I received mine on the Saturday before the Thursday. It was supposed to.
But it's not out yet. It's out tomorrow.
Oh, is it tomorrow? Yes, I received it on Saturday, so it's not even supposed to be out yet. So subscribing does always mean you can get it early. If you're in the UK, WH Smith is where to go. You can either send us a DM on the Inside the Ropes Twitter account with your postcode, and we'll tell you the nearest one, the nearest WH Smith that definitely stocks it, or you can go into your local store and ask them to stock it, because they can. It doesn't cost them anything.
Yep.
And it's going to get them a magazine sale, so they're going to be happy to order it in for you. You can do the same at your local newsagents. If you're in the US, we're in some Barnes and Nobles. I don't know where. Can't really help any more than that.
No.
We're in Easton's in Ireland. Can't help what ones we're in of those either. But we are in them in some places. So
yeah, I imagine it's going to be the bigger ones.
The bigger ones, yeah. We're not going to be in the tiny ones. But yeah, check it out. James, give us some plugs about your podcast and all the stuff that you do, where people can check you out if they have listened to your tones today and want to hear more.
Man, I could be here all day long. What I would say is that there is a Substack for the Spook Media Empire. So if you basically go to Substack and you look for Spook, and that's got 3 O's, sign up. All this stuff will end up in your inbox, and you'll never be free of me.
What a harrowing plug.
Spooky plug almost.
Spooky plug. You can follow Dante at Dante ITR on the Twitter account that he says he was bullied into making, but he wasn't. And you can check out all the stuff we do at itrwrestling.com. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We've got a YouTube channel, youtube.com/Inside the Ropes. Got a Patreon. We do a magazine. There's too much stuff.
There's too much
stuff.
Yeah.
But we'll be back next month with talking about issue 12, and we'll also have James back soon enough as well to discuss your next thought-provoking piece on UK soaps and how they relate to wrestling. So thank you for listening, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.